So just we have the heading Daneil cell is there. Okay, Daneil cell. So before this, we'll have the let us brief idea about the what are the voltaic cell. What is their construction? कसं असतं हे? आता voltaic cell जर घेतला असेल, this voltaic cell is made up of mainly two half cells. Now what is the half cell? When metal is in contact with its own ion, it is generally called as the half cell. So in this case, we can write the same one in this fashion. Half cell is there. When metal is in direct contact with its own ion, we generally call somewhat half cell is there. So how this voltaic cell is? What are the galvanic cells? These voltaic cells consist of two half cells are there. One half cell is just placed at the left hand side portion. One half cell is placed at the right hand side portion. These two half cells connected by the assembly known as the salt bridge or partition function. In this case, we represent it is by the negative sign, it is by the positive sign. So all these things we have to clear in sign conventions for cell representation. So that thing we have to clear here while representation of the cell with the proper symbols, with the proper sign conventions. So in short, remember here that the voltaic cell consists of two half cells which have been placed in a systematic manner. One is to the left hand side, particularly other one is to the right hand side. These two cells separated by the assembly known as the salt bridge along the same. Concentrations are represented by the proper symbols, notations. Particularly to the left hand side electrodes assigned as a negative sign, to the right hand side electrode assigned as a positive sign, and by that way we represent here the cell which is made up of two half cells which generally called as a somewhat voltaic cell. Now we'll introduce to the Daneil cell. We'll just have the explanation about Daneil cell with reference to its construction, working and cell reaction. For that, with the diagram first, then we'll have the explanation. So I'll draw the diagram, then we'll make the explanation. It is your Daneil cell. We can to how to explain here this Daneil cell like this. So at the first, we have come out to the main points about Daneil cell. हे काय असतं नेमकं? In this particular case, it is the type of the primary type of reversible cell. Primary in the sense it can produce electric current on its own concentration, and reversible in the sense it generally shows the cell reactions reversible, or its cell reactions can be reversible by applying slightly high potential as compared to the cell potential. Accepted. Now here in this case, what is the construction of this Daneil cell? Daneil cellचं construction कसं आहे? नेमकं याच्यात काय असतं काय? पहा, it consists of the two beakers in which one consists of zinc sulfate solution, first beaker consists of zinc sulfate solution in which zinc rod is dipped along the same. Second beaker consists of copper sulfate solution in which copper rod is dipped. Then these two rods connected with the help of the somewhat metal wire through the galvanometer. This is the galvanometer. Electron transfer is from zinc towards the copper is there. Okay. So in this case, these two electrodes, these two half cells connected externally, these two half cells connected somewhat internally with help of the assembly generally called as the salt beach. So it is the construction about the somewhat Daneil cell. Once again, I will repeat here all these terms about the Daneil cell, which is already shown in this fashion. पहा, हे कसं सांगायचं? It consists of the two beakers. It consists of the two glass beakers. In first beaker, zinc sulfate solution is taken in which zinc rod is placed. For another beaker, copper sulfate solution is taken in which copper rod is dipped. First one. Number second, these two electrodes connected with help of the metal wire through the galvanometer. Galvanometer is only for the identification of whether there is the change in electric current or not, or whether there is production of the electric current or not. We have to check here with the help of the galvanometer deflection. Okay. So in this case, these two solutions connected with the help of the salt beach generally shown like this. Now here salt beach काय असतं? We have to study this salt beach later on. We will have the explanation in brief about salt beach. Salt beach काय असतं? Salt beach is the inverted U-shaped glass tube which is filled with help of the somewhat saturated KCl or potassium nitrate or ammonium nitrate with the agar-agar gel, and whose both the ends are closed with the help of glass or cotton wool. We generally call it as a salt beach. Salt beach मध्ये एक inverted U-shaped tube आहे. याच्यामध्ये saturated KCl and agar-agar gel is mobilized or filled, and whose both the ends are closed with the help of the glass wool plug or cotton wool plug. The assembly generally called as the salt beach. What is the function? Function is that the salt beach maintains, generally provides an electric current between these two. It makes electric contact between the two half solutions. That functions we have to explain later on. Now in this particular case, let us follow to the working of the Daneil cell. Daneil cellची working काय असतं? High voltage cell आहे, which is generally producing an electric current. Electricity is there. मग working कसं आहे तर पहा. In this case, we have the zinc electrode now. Zinc is having tendency, zinc atoms from the zinc rod passes into the solution in the form of the zinc ions and liberates the electron over their surface. So at the anode, particularly this region is generally called as anode. This region generally called as the somewhat cathode. तुमचा हा निगेटिव्ह इलेक्ट्रोड आहे, हा जो आहे तो पॉझिटिव्ह आहे. बरोबर. मग इथं काय असतं? In this case, at the zinc electrode, zinc is having tendency to pass their atoms in the form of the cations by liberating electrons over their surface. They generally shows a process of oxidation, generally shown like this. Add the zinc atoms from the zinc rod passes into the solution in the form of the cations by liberating electrons over the surface, showing process of oxidation. We represent here it as a oxidation just like this. Along the same, this electron transfers to this metal wire towards the cathode. Now what happens at the cathode? In this case, the Cu plus ions from the solution gains the same electrons from the copper electrode and generally shows as the reduction and get deposited over the surface of the copper rod in the form of the solid copper, showing here the process of the reduction. Cu plus 2 electron, showing here the copper is there. So remember that in this particular case, here this Cu plus ions from the solution gains or accept the electrons from the electrode surface and get reduced at the electrode surface. So showing here the process of reduction generally shows reduction process is there. We can report here it as a somewhat reduction process. Okay. After that one, in this case, electron transfer is 2, and therefore we can write the reaction in this fashion. Now, once these reactions are occurring, here galvanometry shows the deflection. Along the same, we have to follow to the actual function of the salt beach. So what were the things up to now? I will explain once again. पुन्हा एकदा बघा. काय होतं? From the anodic compartment, zinc atoms from the zinc rod pass into the solution in the form of the zinc ions that liberates the electron over the surface, showing generally process of oxidation. This electron transfers through this metal wire comes towards the copper cathodic electrode. In this case, copper ions from the solution gains the same electron and get reduced at the copper, showing process of reduction. Now after this one, if we think about the result of that, if we think about the solution consists of a more number of the zinc plus ions. Zinc plus ions जे आहेत तिथं जास्त आहेत. Meanwhile, इकडं ह्या सोल्युशन मध्ये copper ions कमी झाले. It means there is presence of the much more number of the sulfate ions are there. मग काय होतं? From the salt beach, how there is the internal connection? In this case, as there is the presence of more number of the zinc ions, this chloride ions comes towards the solution, generally forming here the zinc chloride. It neutralizes excess of the zinc ions from this compartment. In the same fashion, the potassium ion transferred towards this cathodic compartment combines with the sulfate ions, forming potassium sulfate, and by that way it generally maintains electrical neutrality in both the half cells, and by that way there is the transfer of the electric current from one to the other half cell, and at the same time this galvanometer generally shows deflection. So in this fashion, this zinc Daneil cell generally works like this. Okay. Now we have to follow to the cell representation for Daneil cell. त्याचं सेल रिप्रेझेंटेशन कसं असतं? सेल रिप्रेझेंटेशनला एक मार्क असतो. हाऊ टू रिप्रेझेंट द सेल? Daneil cell is there. Cell representation for Daneil cell. Cell representation. How to represent cell as per the sign conventions. Okay. So as per sign conventions, anodic half cell are represented to the left hand side portion. Cathodic compartment, cathodic half electrode represented to the right hand side portion. It is separated by the double vertical line. It is having concentration C1. It is having concentration C2. It is in the solid state. Solid state is there. It is assigned having negative charge, assigned positive charge. Transfer of electron is from zinc to the copper is there, like this. As the cell is reversible, the cell reactions can be easily reversed just like this. We can follow in this fashion. So it is the cell representation for the Daneil cell. What are the sign conventions? Very simple one. Negative electrode should be returned to the oxidation electrode represented to the left hand side portion. Assign negative sign, particularly cathodic electrode represented to the right hand side by the positive sign. These two half cells just separated by the somewhat double vertical line known as the salt beach. Along the same, concentration of the solution terms represented by the brackets C1, C2 like this, and whatever the transfer of electron from anode to the cathode, we represent in this fashion. So remember here that cell representation of the Daneil cell will follow like this. And at the last, we will just have the final results of Daneil cell. शेवटचे रिझल्ट काय असतात. हे जर पाहिलं असेल तर in this particular case, due to continuous decay of the zinc atoms from the zinc rod, the size of the zinc rod always decreases. On the contrary, due to continuous deposition of the copper ions over this copper electrode, size of the copper rod always increases. So first result is that size of the zinc rod decreases. Paha, size of zinc rod decreases along with the same size of copper rod increases. So it is the first result in Daneil cell. And what is the precaution to make the Daneil cell of the long life? To prepare or to construct the Daneil cell of the long life, we have to construct it in such a way that the zinc rod should be of the somewhat larger in size and copper rod should be of the somewhat thinner in size, smaller in size, then and then its lifespan can be increased. In this fashion, try to remember the somewhat Daneil cell. Okay, remaining things will continue on tomorrow's period. Okay.